Welcome back. This is part 3, week 2. Let's get back to the slides. Concept 1 looked at trade-off, and it looked at concepts. We introduced the concepts opportunity cost and sunk cost. Opportunity cost before making a decision, sunk cost after making a decision. Okay, now we are looking at the second component of a decision making, which is incentives. Now, incentives are choices that are influenced from changing environments, as it's clearly written in the text. Incentives are how choices are influenced from changing environments. For example, if the price of fuel increases, how does this influence first-time car buyers? Will they be encouraged to buy a car? Will they be discouraged to buy a car? Now, cars are not bought by first-time buyers alone. They can be second-time buyers. So if the price of fuel increases, how does this influence decision making of second-time car buyers? Okay. Now, decision makers calculate cost and benefits of decisions. This is known as cost and benefit analysis. Now, higher fuel costs will raise the cost of maintaining your car, but the cost of using a Jeep will be more than a 1000 cc car. So if you are a first-time buyer, you might be encouraged now to buy a car that is less than 1500 cc. That's the starting point of our fitness certificates. After above 1500 cc, we end up paying a lot of money. So this is how one thing can be influenced. Another thing can be influenced by buying a small car. We can also convert to CNG. So how will we be influenced? What is the time span? That's another thing that will influence incentives. So this is the second thing that we need to look at. So, now we think about examples over here. And during class, we shall be looking at examples. Number 3 is exchange. Like I said, exchange is moving from A to B. Where will this exchange happen? This exchange will happen in a market. How is a market determined? A market is an institutional arrangement where buyers A and B sellers come to meet for a particular transaction. What's the benefit of markets? Markets make it possible for large-scale cooperation to happen with or minimum government intervention. Government can also allocate resources, saying that A will receive this amount of quantity, B will receive this amount of quantity, etc., etc. But in a market setting, this institutional arrangement makes it possible to for large-scale cooperation. Now, what is the core assumption of a market? The core assumption of a market is that transactions will be voluntary. Why should it be voluntary? Previously, we have said that A can snatch the product of B and then be happy totally. But that's not going to be mutually beneficial. So what we are going to look at that A and B voluntarily meet each other to make a transaction. One is a buyer A, one is a seller B. Okay. Then we want to see is how are these resources allocated, what is produced, and who gets what of the distribution. Information set, I think we've already mentioned it. That is that what information sets do the two parties have? Do they have the same set of information? If we are going to buy a brand new mobile phone, yes. Whatever information about the quality of the phone the buyer has, the seller has the same information. So, but in a used car market or an insurance market, like we said a little while ago, in the used car market, sellers know more about the actual quality of the product than the buyers. In an insurance market, the buyers of the insurance know more about themselves than the sellers of the insurance company. So in used car markets and in insurance markets, there is an insurance information gap. This is known as asymmetric information. Asymmetric means it is tilted either towards the sellers know more in a used car market, or it is tilted towards the buyers know more in an insurance market. Okay, this how these markets are function, we will look at it later. Distribution is basically when all the transactions in a market happens, they're all voluntarily done. There's no information gap. People have calculated their opportunity cost, etc. Still, the competitive markets can be unfair. We will be looking at this not in detail, but we will be shedding light on it as the course proceeds. For example, a recent example is government intervention around the world due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, what are the three types of markets that we're going to look at? The three types of major markets. Number one, a product market. Product market is where a finished good is transacted. The buyer comes to buy a finished good, an ice cream. Okay, the buyer buys and buyer consumes, finished. Another market is a labor market. Sorry, labor market and capital market. These are known as input markets. I sell my labor to an organization, to a factory, to a farm or whatever. They buy my labor as input and then they transform this labor into something else, a finished product. In a capital market, I take a loan, I buy a loan, a bank sells me the loan. With this loan, I do something, which is a finished product. So product markets are basically buyers are households are buyers, farms are sellers. In an input market or a factor market, which we are dividing into two components as labor markets and capital markets, the households are selling their inputs. A, their labor, B, their savings as capital to the banks or the financial market. The farms are buying these products and they're making something out with it. Now, our course, we finish over here, which start the next part later on, the types of economics, etc.